Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. That's from Karl Marx, of course. He wrote that famous phrase in 1848. The weird thing is, it's pretty likely that Marx himself never met an actual worker. Wait a second. He didn't spend a decade in a cotton mill witnessing the oppression firsthand? No. Karl Marx never spent a moment in a factory. He was a rich kid who became a journalist. Of course he was. But for more than 150 years, Karl Marx inspired generations of other rich kids who also became journalists to repeat his line or variations of it. Over time, workers became working men or working class, and then with feminism, working people or working families. But the idea itself never changed. Ordinary people, wage earners, are getting shafted. So they've got to unite. They've got to come together for protection and for dignity. This was the idea, of course, behind the organized labor movement. And every Democratic president, from Andrew Jackson until now, has made the very same point over and over again. The noble people of Scranton, you hear it even today. So Democrats have repeated that line often enough, you would think they really mean it. Do they really mean it? Let's take the test. Here's how you know. Watch what happens when actual workers, working people from working families who constitute the working class, actually come together as a group to protest how things are going. What happens then? Does the intellectual class greet these workers as heroes? Throw a parade, listen intently to their stories? Does NPR do a sympathetic feature on them? Or do self-described progressives recoil in revulsion and horror at the grubbiness of the people who, as we used to say, work for a living? Do liberals immediately denounce them as Nazis and call for their suppression by force? That's the question. What's the answer? Well, ask Trump voters what happens. They'll know. Or consider what's happening right now in Canada. Thousands of truck drivers have descended on Ottawa, the capital city, to protest the tyranny of Justin Trudeau's government. Justin Trudeau does not like truck drivers. He thinks they're revolting. Justin Trudeau likes private equity barons and tech moguls and other people who give him money. Trudeau is not in Ottawa right now. In fact, he and his family fled when the truck drivers arrived, and they've been in hiding ever since. So when the revolution he has been calling for finally arrived, Justin Trudeau wasn't there to see it. He ran away in terror. Kind of sad. So instead, in his place, his friend Mark Carney has been speaking for him. Carney is a former Goldman Sachs executive who many believe will replace Justin Trudeau if Trudeau ever decides to give up power. In a recent op-ed, Mark Carney vented his rage at the impudent truckers in Ottawa and anyone who sent them money on the internet. Quote, "Anyone sending money to the convoy should be in no doubt," Carney wrote. "You are funding sedition. Foreign funders of an insurrection interfered in our domestic affairs from the start." Got that? It's not a protest. It's sedition. It's an insurrection. Clearly, Mark Carney's been watching a lot of CNN up there in Canada, and that's why he's concluded that truckers should be crushed by force. Quote, "Those who are still helping to extend this occupation must be identified and punished to the full force of the law. People who sent them money should be prosecuted. If they're not prosecuted," Mark Carney fears, quote, "the constant blaring of horns at all hours will bankrupt our businesses." Are you laughing yet? So the very same finance ghouls who cheered lockdowns for 2 solid years are now deeply concerned that small businesses might be hurt by the trucker protests. Hilarious. It'd be interesting, by the way, to poll small business owners in Ottawa to see what they think. How do they feel about the truckers? Somehow you know exactly what those results would be, but no one's doing that poll, of course. Instead, they found an easier way. Justin Trudeau has just ordered police to shut the whole thing down. How do you do that? How do you stop a truck protest? Simple. You seize their fuel. That's exactly what police in Canada are doing. Watch.
So, in fact, yes, they are taking fuel right away from people as they attempt to fuel their vehicles.
Okay, so we are, through much practice, connoisseurs of irony. So let's pause a moment to savor the irony here. The very same people who told us we had to defund the police are now telling the police to seize fuel from working class Canadians who are trying to stay alive in Arctic temperatures. As they used to say in the 1960s, scratch a liberal and you will find a fascist. That was a Black Panther slogan, actually. They weren't entirely stupid. In fact, in this case, they were absolutely right. According to Justin Trudeau, possessing gasoline in the city of Ottawa is now a crime. Now, to be clear, Ottawa didn't declare the state of emergency because the truckers lit a courthouse on fire, or shot someone, or leveled a church. BLM did all of those things, but Justin Trudeau strongly supports BLM. He reaffirmed his support the other day. Here's the problem, and we're going to let the mayor of Ottawa, or Ottawa, as it's correctly pronounced in Ojibwa, explain why peaceful truck drivers pose an imminent danger to Canada.
It's disturbing when you see the protests turning into what looks like some kind of a fun carnival where they've got bouncy castles and hot tubs and saunas, a complete insult to the people who are putting up with this nonsense for the last 7 days, and it shows a great deal of insensitivity.
They've got bouncy castles for kids, growls the childless mayor of Ottawa. Let's hurt them. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's a dark scene in Truckistan tonight. The kids are on the bouncy castles. Of course, at the same time, their parents are flaunting the authority of the people in charge, and that is the crime. Watch this protester, a white supremacist, explain his motives for protest.
Where the hell were you? You weren't there. But now you want to come out in the freezing cold to oppose my fundamental human rights and freedoms. I'm not going to have it. I'm a black man standing beside my brother right here. This is my brother right here. And none of you have the right to tell me who to associate with and who not to associate with me. Because you did not come out and voice your concerns for the fact that Justin Trudeau banned me from leaving this country because of my medical decision, because I made a decision that he did not like.
Shut up, racist. Go back to Jamaica with your white supremacy nonsense. By the way, no one in Canada's government or the media in Canada, which is mostly controlled by the government, is engaging with any of the arguments of people like that. Instead, they've gone directly to force, as crumbling regimes always do. They don't have an argument to make. All they have is police power, and they're using them.
Olá pessoal, tudo bem? Aqui é o Tradutor. Eu tô passando para te avisar que eu tô numa campanha para conseguir pelo menos mais 9 apoiadores. Esse canal não monetizado, então totalmente depende de você. Eu preciso muito do seu apoio para manter esse canal atualizado e vivo, né, no ar. Os links para apoiar esse nosso projeto estão na descrição desse vídeo e no comentário fixado. Então é muito fácil e muito simples de apoiar. É graças a essas pessoas incríveis que eu posso estar trazendo conteúdo para vocês. E é isso aí, pessoal. Não se esqueçam de deixar seu like e seu comentário. E até mais. Fui. Grande abraço.